DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And we are back. We are back with some more appetizers. Again, some more appetizers for you. And we're talking about UFC 315, Muhammad versus Della Maddalena, and that's Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. And this happened May 10th, 2025. So this past Saturday at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. The attendance was 19,786, and then the total gate was 6 million. So off of those numbers, not bad. But if we're going to try to compare this card to like UFC 314, which we think a lot of people think was maybe the best card this year or this season, I wouldn't say that this card really it wasn't a bad card, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that it was a good card. There was a lot of fights that just kind of went to unanimous decision, especially on the main card. Like there were some good fights, there were some wars, and even some of those fights that went 5 rounds, championship rounds, but just kind of a little boring, a little boring. Even you had a change of titles, the change in hands of a title that made it a little exciting, but just no real finishes or stoppages on the main card besides just one. But heck, I think originally coming into this card, I'd kind of underestimated the prelims, the early prelims and the standard prelims. I was saying, oh, there's not a lot of star power or notable names on it, and it's kind of boring. I might just be watching Knicks Celtics playoff game or watching Backlash instead of watching any of the preliminary card, which ended up happening, but still that didn't keep the preliminary card from just trucking on. And still, I mean, you could definitely argue it was better than the main card just off of outcomes and excitement and finishes, because you had some names like Brad Katona, Marc-Andre Barrial versus Bueno Silva on the early prelims, and then on the standard preliminary cards, you had Modest Bukauskas versus Ian Cutelaba, Jasmine Vicious versus Jessica Andrade, and so those are a couple more notable names than I expected. And then you had some of the best stoppages of the night on the preliminary card, which we'll come back to here at the end of the show, talking about some bonuses, fighter bonuses, the $50,000 bonuses on the night. But that's enough of the preliminary card. Let's get into the main card here and our original like predictions. So this is UFC 315, Muhammad versus Della Maddalena, and this is the reaction show off of our picks. So let's get into the main card. So can I get a menu? And so the first fight on the card was a lightweight bout between Benoit Saint-Denis versus Kyle Pre-Polak. And going into this fight, we kind of thought, this maybe is this kind of like a get back fight for Bueno Saint-Denis, who's still young but had a little rough stretch and some tough losses where he took some TKO losses and had a doctor stoppage in another one. And then you had a guy coming in who should have been, I'm sure he was a heavily favored in the underdog, as a heavy underdog in this fight, because he hadn't fought in the UFC since like 2019 or something, in like 6 or 7 years, and had some impressive finishes outside the UFC. But no real notable talent, and no talent that's was on the level of Benoit Saint Denis. And so I originally picked this fight to for Benoit Saint Denis to win this fight by submission, and I thought he was going to end up getting a choke of some sort. I think I originally said rear naked choke. So he ended up getting the submission at at the. He did end up getting a submission, and it was a choke at the 2:35 mark of the second round. He was able to get an arm triangle choke. But starting into this fight, Benoit Saint Denis looked like he was okay to stand with Kyle Priapolek on a couple exchanges in the first round and in the second round where it looked like, oh, maybe Kyle Priapolek got landed a decent shot, or Benoit Saint Denis maybe felt that a little bit, and then at the end of each round and then end of the fight, he was able to get Kyle Priapolek on the ground, and I thought he was going to get the rear naked choke at the end of the first round where he got his back, but he was never able to completely set in the rear naked choke to get the stop. But he was able to do a lot more of the same going into the second round, where there was one moment in the fight where he got a little reckless and got in one of these little brawl and exchanges with Kyle Priapolek where it didn't look like it was the greatest idea for him. But then he started to overwhelm Kyle Priapolek. He had him up against the cage and was landing some knees and landing some hard elbows. I thought he was going to get him out of there by just TKO, but then Kyle Priapolek kind of crumbled to the mat, and Benoit Saint Denis was able to take him down, and he was able to pretty quickly was able to get him in that arm triangle choke and submit him at the 2:35 mark of the second round. So we started off the card with a bang, started right out of the gate. Curtain jerker and an impressive finish and an impressive performance by Benoit Saint Denis, and got our prediction and the method right. So yeah, it was exciting right out of the gate, but then it kind of came to a screeching halt kind of after that. We have some exciting, and there were some moments in some of these unanimous decision fights, but that's all you had left after the first fight on the card. Were four more fights that just all went to unanimous decision, and there were some exciting moments in the fights, but overall, uh, you just want to see fights that either if they're going to be super close and go to decision, you'd rather them be like crazy, like split decision or majority decision, or of course you'd rather see a knockout or submission, but you didn't get that the rest of the way of the card, and just off of the name recognition already, only really having only one superstar on the card, but you did still have two title fights. I think that continued to hurt the card, not having like any real impressive victories, and I don't think there's really any surprises for the most part on this card, even though I didn't get every single pick right. But anyways, let's get on to the second fight on the card. We have a women's flyweight bout between Natalia Silva versus former women's flyweight champion and Alexa Grasso. And I picked Alexa Grasso coming into this fight just because she had all the experience in championship fights, and had looked so good at times against Valentina Shevchenko, and was even able to beat her with a face crank. So I thought this was just kind of going to be a big step up in competition for Natalia Silva. But Natalia Silva ended up winning this. I originally picked Alexa Grasso to win by decision, but she ended up on the wrong side of this fight by decision. So this fight went 3 rounds, all 5 rounds, all 15 minutes, and was a decision, unanimous, 30-27, 30-27, and 30-27. And I actually thought Alexa Grasso maybe stole the first round. Like that's really the only time she looked impressive at all in this fight, or had her moment in this fight. And for the most part, Natalia Silva was just keeping her at kicking range and striking range, and just kind of point striked her and just kind of beat her up, and just avoided clinching or having Alex Grasso having any type of takedown opportunities, and she just picked her apart and showed a pretty impressive display and was basically a kickboxing bout. And Natalia Silva just definitely showed that she was the superior striker. And the one moment that Alexa Grasso had was in the first round. Towards the end of the first round, she was actually able to take Natalia Silva down and hold her down for the rest of the round and lay a little bit of ground and pound, nothing too serious. But then after that, Alexa Grasso just never had it, never seemed like she uh, had the same speed or the same striking ability and was never able to get close enough to Natalia Silva again to try a takedown or push her up against the cage or try any like dirty boxing. So, we thought like maybe an impressive win by Alexa Grasso could maybe get her in line for another title shot, or we thought maybe an impressive victory or maybe just the win over Alexa Grasso would be enough for Natalia Silva to maybe be in line or take that number one spot at the women's flyweight division. But I don't think it was an overly impressive victory. Like it's impressive because of who she beat, Alexa Grasso, the former flyweight champion, and who's had a trilogy with Valentina Shevchenko. But I mean, it's not like she ever really came close to beating Alexa Grasso, like stopping her or getting her in a bad position to try to get a submission or did a lot of damage to her. She just did a great job of point striking and staying away and a lot of people would say maybe that's kind of like running away, but she just avoided any damage and the any damage that was dished out in this fight was dished out by her, but nothing too serious. But yeah, that kind of put like kind of a bit of a screeching halt to the momentum that the main card had starting out with the Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Pre-Polak fight. So that was a little disappointing, but impressive victory nonetheless by Natalia Silva. We'll see how that plays out in the women's flyweight division now. Now then, on to the third fight on the card. We have a featherweight bout between Amin Zahibi versus Jose Aldo, and maybe I ended up getting what I wanted potentially in this fight. I mean, coming into this card and on the prediction show, I was kind of like, man, Jose Aldo's still on main cards and he's still fighting and he's coming in overweight and still being kept on the main card. Two almost 40-year-old fighters. Like, man, can someone just take Jose Aldo out to pasture? I mean, I don't think you would say the final method in which he lost would be necessarily taking him out to pasture by like a brutal knockout or a brutal submission, leaving him with a broken arm in the middle of the cage or to sleep after a head and arm triangle or a rear naked choke. You didn't get that, but you did get to see him get beat up a little bit after the end of the round. But this fight, for the most part, for the first two rounds, Jose Aldo pretty much dominated this fight. It was pretty much just like a kickboxing bout. I mean, Zahibi went for a couple takedowns, but was never too successful in the first two rounds. And even one time, I think it was maybe in the third round, it looked like Jose Aldo was getting a little tired and slowing down. And he actually went for a takedown, but didn't get it. But it was just kind of strictly just kind of kickboxing through the first two rounds, and it looked like Jose Aldo was the shots that he was landing looked like they were meaning a little bit more. I don't necessarily think he was landing more significant strikes. It just looked like they were more meaningful. But then in the third round, it looked like Jose Aldo landed a good enough shot that got Amin Zahibi on his heels. I think he landed like a hook or an uppercut, or maybe it was just a straight shot on him that had him like stumbling backwards and like as he's trying to get up, Jose Aldo kicked him like right in the face, and then that had him scrambling and going backwards in the cage again, and then pretty much the exact same thing. Like as he's trying to get up, Jose Aldo landed another kick like right in the face. This was in the third round, and it looked like Jose Aldo just emptied his gas tank trying to get the finish there, and he was literally there was like one moment with like 3 minutes left on the clock in the third round where he like literally just completely dropped everything he was doing. He just while his opponent's like literally like right in his face, like throwing punches, he's like looking over to see like how much time was left on the clock. And that ended up leading to Amin Zahibi's most impressive and most productive takedown in this fight, and who ended up and how he ended up landing the most amount of damage in this fight, where it looked like if he would have just emptied his own gas tank and maybe landed a couple elbows back to back, then having them a little spread out a little more. As much as he did, that he maybe could have got this finish because he landed some really good elbows at the end of this fight that cut Jose Aldo in like two or three different places. So he was like a bloody mess and took the most damage in the fight. And there were some people thinking, oh, maybe it wasn't a 10-8 or maybe it wasn't enough for Amin Zahibi to win the fight just going off the first two rounds. But it was definitely the most damage and most like offense from any either fighter was the ground and pound at the end of the third round. So that ended up getting Zahibi the win, even though I think there's some people out there that maybe say Jose Aldo got robbed, and Jose Aldo himself looked surprised by this decision. But that's who I picked. I picked Amin Zahibi to win this fight by decision, and that's how it went. And I what I was saying at the start of this, I was wanting to see Jose Aldo kind of taken out to pasture. Well, we got that with the amount of damage he took at the end and how tired and exhausted he was at the end of this fight. He literally was saying like he didn't think he had it anymore to go to war, to do all the training, and just doesn't really want to do this anymore. So at the end of the fight, and when his interview came up after Aman Zahibi, he had his gloves off and he put his gloves in the middle of the ring. And at least for the UFC, I mean, he may get a little tight in the wallet to where he has to do some uh, BKFC or some other MMA organization where he might still fight. But looks as for now, Jose Aldo is retiring from the UFC and I guess MMA for now because he just doesn't want to go to war anymore. So we got two picks, right? 2-0 to start this card. Now on to the co-main event. We have a women's flyweight bout between Valentina Shevchenko versus Manin Forat. And I picked Valentina Shevchenko to win this fight. And I thought she was going to win this fight to where she was going to kind of start out kind of filling out Manin Fiorot and then probably find out relatively quickly that Manin Fiorot was the better striker. But and then as the fight progresses, maybe she starts taking Mannion Fiorot down and maybe tries to like wear her out, and then maybe goes back to her striking once and see if she has the edge in the striking once she wears her out a little bit. But that's not what happened. And I thought she was maybe going to get a TKO at some point due to Mannion Fiorot being dragged into the championship rounds, but she handled the championship fight very well. And I think even though she's 35 years old, she's no spring chicken in herself. I think there's a good chance we may see Mannion Fiorot again, or at least at the top of the women's flyweight division still. But this ended up instead of going TKO like I was maybe anticipating, like in the third or the fourth round, or maybe even in the fifth round, the later rounds nonetheless. It ended up going unanimous decision all 5 rounds, so a 25-minute fight, and that was 48-47, 48-47, and 48-47. So I imagine most of the referees saw the fight all the same. I'm trying to figure out because there's quite a few people that also thought Mannion Fiorot won this fight, but this is kind of one of those ones where you go back and you think like 10, 20 years ago in the UFC, like in a championship bout, you had to uh, beat the champ to be the champ. Like you usually it was very rare that a title would change hands just off of a decision. It usually had to be a submission or a knockout or just a complete domination in the decision to where they win every single round, no debate at all, and really damage their opponent a lot. But uh, you definitely didn't Mannion Fiorot definitely didn't do enough to win the belt, and that's not what happened. But in the first round, Valentina Shevchenko looked like she was a little bit better actually. in the first round and just the striking, and really only tried one takedown herself. And towards the end of the first round, I think she landed a good shot on Mannion Fiorot, but broke her nose. So for a young fighter in regards to her UFC career, that was something pretty big to have to deal with early, and then your first title um, challenge opportunity, women's title fight. You know, the first opportunity at it, you're like right out of the gate, you have a broken nose, and so it looked like Valentina Shevchenko surprisingly had the better stand up. So start the fight, and then actually in the second, so I'm trying to place where I think Valentina Shevchenko won some rounds here. As so I think she won the first round just basically off of breaking her nose and causing more damage to Fiorot. And then in the second and the third round, Mannion Fiorot was the one that actually started going for the takedowns and like trying to just hold on to Valentina Shevchenko and just like push her up against the cage and like dirty box. So I think that's where people maybe gave Mannion Fiorot round 2 and 3, and then and then in the fourth round, Valentina Shevchenko almost was able to get the finish over Mannion Fiorot. Landed like a really good hook shot on her that ended up dropping her, and then she got all over her and was trying to lay some ground and pound on her. But she ended up getting saved by the bell there, and I was thinking that maybe she was going to get stopped in the fifth round. She'd come out and be damaged still, hurt still, but she was able to recover, and I think that's kind of that may be the round that up for debate a little bit was the fifth round. So did Mannion Fiorot win round 2 and 3 and 5, or was it Valentina Shevchenko that won round 1, 4, and 5? I think that's how it ended up turning out, and definitely the biggest moment and the most damage was uh, dished out by Valentina Shevchenko early on, breaking Fiorot's nose and then getting close to stopping her. Looked like in at the end of the first round, like I said, she got kind of saved by the bell. All right, so we're doing okay. We're 3-1 on the card, and just 1-2 on we're 3-1 on the card, and just off of methods, only got one fight completely right off of the submission from Benoit Saint-Denis versus Kyle Pre-Pollock. So now then, on to the main event. We had a welterweight championship bout between Jack Della Maddalena, the challenger, versus Belal Muhammad, the champion. And Belal Muhammad is champion no more. We have Jack Della Maddalena ended up winning this fight. Uh, uh, Ended up winning unanimous decision 48, 47, 48, 47, and 49, 46. And that was a 5-round championship, about 25 minutes. And this kind of like looking at this similar to like I thought you kind of had to beat the champ to be the champ, but I think Jack Della Maddalena he caused just enough damage, and actually quite a bit of damage uh, to get the win over Bilal Muhammad, and was able to never really get taken down or controlled all that much towards the end of the fight. At the end of the fight, Bilal Muhammad had like a huge gash over his cheek and over his eye, and his upper lip was completely split. Looked like he had like a hair lip or something afterwards. So Jack Della Maddalena definitely caused a lot more damage to Bilal Muhammad. And Bilal Muhammad coming into this fight said that he was never going to shoot for a takedown. And I mean, I don't know. Some people say that because I guess because of those statements, a lot of people are thinking that he had like a bad game plan going into this fight. But I don't. It's not necessarily he didn't try to go for a takedown. Every time he tried to go for one, Jack Della Maddalena would just like shake him off. And the two times that he was actually able to get Jack Della Maddalena on the ground, Jack Della Maddalena, he was just able to stand right back up. And uh, I think he was 1 for 7 on takedown attempts. Bel Bilal Muhammad, and then ended up on top just in kind of like a scramble or change position on the ground when Della Maddalena had him on the ground. Were the only other 2 times where he had control of Della Maddalena, and he literally just like popped right back up. It looked like in the 5th round that maybe if Bilal Muhammad, who took Della Maddalena down early in that round, if he was able to have kept him down that whole round and maybe land some good shots and some good ground and pound, that Bilal Muhammad would have, I don't know if I'd necessarily want to say still the win because he was the champion, but maybe that could have helped him quite a bit. But a lot of people talk about Bilal Muhammad not being exciting and not striking enough, and he's like a one-trick pony. But I don't know if you could say that quite as much. I know he lost his belt, and maybe he didn't have a great game plan, but he was pretty exciting in this fight. And one of the most impressive thing is just how he kind of was just like walking through like such hard shots by Jack Della Maddalena, and he just kept coming forward like a damn zombie, like a damn Terminator. Della Maddalena landed some really hard elbows throughout this fight, and I think it was towards the end of the 1st round where Bilal Muhammad kind of just like, I think he kind of went for like kind of like a half-hearted shot, and Della Maddalena landed big a big uh, a big knee that landed like right on Muhammad's orbital bone and like cut it open. I think he maybe even broke his orbital bone, and that was just some of the damage that Del Manalena did. But he was impressive. His strikes caused a lot more damage, and he was able to just shake Bilal Muhammad any of his takedowns off. So he didn't really take much damage, and he didn't let Bilal Muhammad control the pace of the fight by getting takedowns. So uh, I wouldn't say it was that impressive of a victory. Definitely, I could see he definitely won the fight, did enough to win the fight, but what wasn't what Bilal Muhammad definitely has a good chin on him, because it didn't seem really like at any moment that Della Maddalena was gonna finish him. It looked like maybe some of those elbows and the clinch at times they connected and made so much noise at time. It looked like, man, land like 3 or 4 of those in a row up against the cage in the clinch. Maybe the ref would stop it, but that was about it. Bilal Muhammad literally just kind of walked through every punch and just kind of shook it off, but took too much damage, and they kept showing like the significant strikes. Jack Della Maddalena, he definitely mixed it up more with more head shots and body shots and leg shots, while like all of like Bilal Muhammad's like 60 significant strikes, like almost all of them, like 50 or more, were just like head strikes. So I think Jack Della Maddalena, besides Muhammad abandoning his game plan or what got him to the belt, Della Maddalena was just that the better striker, and that won him the fight. So we have a new welterweight champion after a decision win, 48, 47, 48, 47, and 49, 46. So one of those judges didn't think it was even close. That thought Bilal Muhammad barely even won a round. And if the rounds that Bilal Muhammad probably won were maybe the second or the third round, or maybe like the 5th round. But Della Maddalena definitely caused a lot more damage and controlled the pace and controlled where the fight took place. And that's, I guess, nowadays that's enough to win you a title. Okay, so that's the main card. Let's just go over. We talked about how the prelims were they were better than the main card, and we're gonna go over exactly what I mean here, and that's by going over the bonus awards, the the $50,000 bonuses that were handed out. So we just got done about talking about the fight of the night, which was Jack Della Maddalena versus Belal Muhammad. So I agree with that. There was just the toughness that you saw from Belal Muhammad and the damage dished out by Mandela Della Maddalena was impressive and was exciting. And really, I thought that there was going to be a TKO stoppage at like almost any point in that fight. But like I said, Belal Muhammad just showed his perseverance and his toughness to not get stopped in that fight. So that was enough to win that the fight of the night. And then we have the two performance of the night, and they're both on the prelims, one on the early prelims and one on the standard prelims. And we ended up actually having KO of the night, knockout of the night. Technically, that's what I call it when you have one or the other. You got to pick out a knockout or a submission of the night. It used to be where if you didn't have a knockout of the night, then there was no bonus, or there wasn't a submission of the night, there wouldn't be a bonus. But on the early prelims, this was a catch weight of 187 by Mark Andre Barriault versus Bueno Silva. You had Mark Andre Barriault getting the win by KO, elbows and punches at the 127 mark of the first round. And then for submission of the night, the co-main event on the standard prelims, you had Jazz Daravicius defeated Jessica Andrade submission, rear naked choke at the 240 minute of the first round. So you had some better fights and better finishes. I would say, besides having, you could argue the fight of the night on the main card. So you could definitely see that this card was good. It was entertaining, but there wasn't enough to move the needle happening with the outcomes and methods on the main card, and you just didn't have a lot of superstar and star power besides what a 30, 37, 36, yeah, 37-year-old Valentina Shevchenko, who could easily, if she loses her next fight or maybe going into her next fight, I could easily see her saying, "Oh, this is my retirement fight," or if she gets beat and loses the belt, that could be her retirement. Even though I kind of find it hard to see Valentina Shevchenko ending her career or retiring after a loss. But anyways, that's about all that we have for UFC 315. Jack Della Maddalena versus Belal Muhammad. We have UFC 316 will be the next fight on the card. So a little less up next, and that will be June 6, 2025. That's UFC 316, Dosh Willie versus O'Malley 2. So you got a little more star power there with Marab Dosh Willie, Sean O'Malley, Kayla Harrison, Julia Pena, Vincent Laqui, Kevin Holland, Kelvin Gastelum, Joe Pfeiffer, Mario Batista, Marlon Vera, Bueno Guasta Silva, Joshua Vaughn, and Andre Ariana da Silva versus Wang Kong. So a little more notable names, a little more superstar power and up and comer wanting to see if they can become the women's bantamweight and Kayla Harrison. So I just from a perspective, like looking back as a perspective, it looks like that UFC 16 shouldn't have that hard of a time drawing in fans and just being a better card than UFC 315. But it wasn't a bad card. Can't say it was a great card, but can't really say it was bad. It was good. So, anyways, I think that's about all I had for you. So, can I get a check, please?